Hey guys, this is Ziggy Dash again. This is part 2 of my Ranger build, and we're gonna go over the armor, weapons, sigils, and runes that we'll be using. Alright, let's talk about the armor. The armor is gonna be all Berserker gear. Every single piece is all Berserker gear. This is a very glass cannon build, but we have the advantage that we're at range. So we can get away with that by, dodging at the right times. And we have some escape abilities in both our weapons. We also have some regen from most of our skills. So we'll be fine. Okay, so it's all Berserkers, which is power, precision, and critical damage, with power being the main trait. So we have that, including the weapons. They're also Berserkers. The rings are also Berserkers. The jewels are also Berserkers. So that brings us to 99% increased critical damage bonus, which is pretty much as high as you can get it. You can get it higher with some consumables, but I'm not using those consumables. Trust me, 99% increased crit damage is plenty. For the weapons, we're going to use a short bow and a longbow. Primarily, almost 100% use the short bow in terms of dungeons or farming, doing solo play, or doing events. But when doing meta events, you come across situations where you have to shoot at giant dragons from very far away, and that's where the longbow really comes into play. Also, in certain bosses where you can stay very far away, the longbow is actually higher DPS than the short bow. If you want to, you could change it to Axe Warhorn, simply for the Warhorn number 5, which gives you mobility through swiftness, fury, and a little bit of might. But I prefer being able to switch back and forth between my longbow and my short bow. Let's go over the weapon skills for those two weapons. Alright, for the longbow, the long range shot is your primary damage dealer. The further you're out in range, the harder it hits. Rapid fire is your burst, which you can coordinate with one of your swiftness skills and really burst somebody down. Okay, hunter shot is very good. It gives you 10 stacks of vulnerability and your pet swiftness, which doesn't really matter, and it does a small amount of damage. So you should almost always use this unless they have 25 stacks of vulnerability. Point blank shot is your get the heck away from me dude when somebody gets too close. Although they never should get too close, because you should always be kiting, or if you need to back off, I would switch to my short bow instead. The bad thing about using point blank shot is the knockback doesn't always have the desired effect, and especially if you're in a group, you might interrupt your melee players that were doing a skill or damage, and you mess them up because you knocked their foe away. So you want to stick to moving yourself and stopping the enemy from moving. That's ideally what you want. So it's great in situations where you're shit out of luck. In other situations, I wouldn't mess with it. Barrage is your AoE. It's an AoE cripple. It's mostly used to kiting a lot of mobs. If you're being chased by a lot of mobs, or you have a lot of mobs on your party, I would switch to the longbow real quick, drop down that AoE, and then switch back. Alright, the short bow is my favorite weapon from the Ranger. It might be my favorite weapon in Guild Wars 2. We'll see. There's a couple favorites up there. The axe for the warrior, great sword for the guardian, The Mesmer offhand pistol is amazing. But this one, I gotta hand it to this one, is very, very well designed. Alright, your main damage dealer is Crossfire, which bleeds my target if I hit them from behind or from the side, which I should always try to do. Bleeding is not that big a deal because we're not a condition-based build, but it doesn't hurt. And we get 10% more damage if we hit him from the side anyways through our trades. Okay, this is going to be our primary damage dealer. We do not want to stop auto attacking unless we need to apply some of these other conditions. Alright, Poison Volley, it hits in a wide arc. It hits plenty of enemies and it poisons them all, which is relatively effective if you need to stick poison on an enemy. Quick Shot is your getaway move, which is it makes you jump backwards and gives you swiftness for 3 seconds. So 33.33% of the time you can have swiftness going on because it's on a 9-second cooldown. I wouldn't use it unless I need to move somewhere. Crippling Shot is the one of the two attacks that I would use to interrupt my auto attack. This is basically used for kiting, for the cripple, and for the bleed. It's definitely nice. Use it when it's off cooldown. And Concussion Shot is a biggie. It daces and stuns if you hit them from behind. Daze is nice, stun is better. They both interrupt, so it's great if somebody's casting something big. Just interrupt them real quick. It'll save your friends' lives. Alright, the only other thing that I want to look at to show you was the Warhorn offhand, Call of the Wild. It gives you Might for 15 seconds, Fury for 15 seconds, and Swiftness for 15 seconds. This would be the only other weapon that I would use other than the two weapons that we have. Alright, for the Sigils, I really like Sigil of Perception. I think it's a great sigil. Okay, you could switch that up with Sigil of Force. I believe that if you play right, you shouldn't be downed that much. So, I mean, keeping a stack of 25 should be pretty achievable, especially in dungeons or when you're running events or farming, especially in farming. I don't think you should ever go down in farming, especially since you're at range. You can avoid most things. Okay? So, at 25 stacks of accuracy, we got 71% crit chance. For my Longbow, I use Superior Sigil Accuracy, which I'm really thinking about changing to Superior Sigil of Force, which gives me 5% more damage. Why I'm thinking about changing it is because I realized that with 25 stacks of this and Fury, I'm actually at 99% crit, so I'm going over the crit cap by 4% if I use this sigil, so I might think about changing it, which I probably will. The on crit sigils have definitely been nerfed to the point where they're not really superior to the stacking or the direct stat bonus. On crit used to be really good. Sigil of Strength, which I use on my warrior because I have two weapons, so I can have Sigil of Perception and something else. Sigil of Strength gives you 30% chance to apply Might for 10 seconds on critical hit. It has a 2-second internal cooldown. The 30 seconds, I mean the 30% chance is not great, and I find myself that Sigil of Perception is a far better investment because I only usually stack around max like 3 or 4 stacks of Might, and that's very rare. It usually turns out to be 1 stack of might before the mob is dead. Even if it's a boss, I'll get to 3-4 stacks of might max. I can't get past that because of the internal cooldown. Sigil of Earth would be nice for the bleed. It's on a 2-second cooldown as well internally, and it's a much better chance at 60%, but we're not trying to go for bleed, so it's pretty worthless here. Alright, that's it for the armor, runes, weapons, sigils, and everything else. The next video is gonna be actually doing our rotation, what our consumables are gonna be, and what kind of variations. And I'm gonna talk about our pets, of course.